We're here in the Los Angeles studio of Mr. Matt Rad. Matt, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
So Matt, you've worked in various capacities with acts like 30 Seconds to Mars, Demi Lovato, Guy Sebastian and Lupe Fiasco, and you also co-produced One Direction's hit Best Song Ever. So just to kick off, can you tell us a bit about your musical background then and how you started working in music professionally?
Yeah, I grew up in Oakland, California, up in the Bay Area, uh, Northern California, and grew up playing piano and guitar. And Oakland is a sort of extraordinary place for music because it's got this incredible history of all kinds of stuff, including jazz and punk rock and hip hop. And I basically just was the kid that by the time I was maybe 13, 14, was just involved with as much as I could be involved in. So I was producing hip hop records and playing in punk rock bands. I grew up about 7 or 8 blocks from a world famous jazz club. My parents would take me there. I got to go see McCoy Tyner and Afro-Cuban All-Stars and all these amazing jazz artists. And in my teenage years, I just basically hung out in my parents' basement and had all my friends come and play music. And I kind of defaulted and became record producer guy just because that's where everybody came. You know, when I was growing up, I was playing piano and picked up guitar and had friends who played all kinds of different instruments, and so I basically just filled in roles, and whether that was singing and playing in a band or recording my friend's band or making beats for guys that rapped, whatever it was, I kind of just got involved however I could. And you know, when I came to Los Angeles, I pretty much exclusively started being a rock producer because I was working for. So I met Eric Valentine and started working for him. So I grew up playing all kinds of different instruments, and then kind of shut down the writing thing for a while when I came down here.
So how did that come about then, you meeting Eric Valentine and working with him?
So I had recorded some bands in high school that were friends of mine, a band called The Matches and a band called Street to Nowhere, which I was sort of in as well. And when I came to LA to go to college, to be a college student, not studying music, I came down and these bands started getting attention, and they would actually, The Matches would pick me up from my dorm room and take me to meetings and introduce me as their producer, and I was 18, 19. And I got to meet Eric. I got to meet a bunch of people, but including Eric Valentine, and he was a guy who's also from the Bay Area, and of course I grew up listening to his records. And he was interested in working with The Matches, didn't end up doing anything with them, but I kind of got my foot in the door and just, it was actually the first professional studio I'd ever been in, was stepping into his place, which it used to be called Crystal Industries back in the day. Stevie Wonder made records there. It's an extraordinary place. And I basically just bothered him for a while until he hired me. And so I assisted for him, mostly just getting in his way, but learned how to properly engineer and calibrate tape machines and actually properly make records, because before I'd been just making them in my parents' basement in my dorm room with my friends, and worked for him for 5 or 6 years, and sort of at the same time still producing bands on the side. But then ultimately, when I kind of graduated from being his assistant, I moved into the B room at his studio and worked there for 4 or 5 years, making records. But yeah, I spent a huge amount of time with that guy.
And so, I mean, what effect did that have on you working with Eric, and what were the big things that you learned from that relationship?
I don't think there's enough good things to say about that guy. I mean, I think, obviously I worked for him, so I got to watch, pre-production through mixing and to see it over and over and over. And he's an extraordinary engineer and mixer and producer, and he's such a meticulous guy that to sit there and watch him spend multiple days on a snare drum sound, or spend 4 or 5 days on a mix and go back and retrack things. I mean, there's a lot of I feel like in some of the production community, there's an engineer community, there's a lot of lore about him, and I think it's all totally deserved. Like, he's such a freak in the best way, and was just so generous with his time. I would ask him questions and he would just go off on 30-minute tangents about compressors, just because he's excited about it. He's as excited, I think, as he probably was when he was 17 and started to make records. And so I really learned how to do a lot of technical things from him. but also, he's an extraordinarily patient and kind guy that, like I said, was just very generous with his time to me and all the bands he worked with. I mean, to really learn how to get the best out of artists and be patient and sort of see a vision through for a multiple month process is pretty extraordinary to be around him for that.
Cool. So just going back to drums then, because we were talking before we started about some different drum techniques and how, as engineers, we never really use Lavalier mics apart from this very specific technique. So do you want to tell us a bit about that?
I was just saying that, when something that actually, hopefully I'm not giving away all of Eric Valentine's secrets, but he has this technique with, by the way, I love drums. Drums are like easily the most fun thing to record and program and play with and mix and tune, and I'm just like a total freak for drums. And working on pop records, you don't get to record as much live drums, but when I get to work on other genres, any chance I can get to record live drums or percussion or anything is just the greatest thing in the world to me. And Eric is just levels and levels beyond my ability in terms of, he's an extraordinary drummer, a total John Bonham freak. And so he's got all kinds of incredible and nutty ways to record drums that he'll every time he does a record. He'll do an entirely different drum setup. He'll have a new mic he's excited about. He'll try new things. It takes a huge amount of time, but it's incredible. He has some of the best drum sounds I think ever. But I was saying with the lavalier mics, he does a thing with, and I can't remember the model, of course. I think it's like ECM 50 or something. This Omni lavalier mic, which will hang from the front, the batter side of a kick drum and hang it down right next to where the beater actually hits the kick drum, and it'll essentially be like a front kick mic as well as a bottom snare mic, and you can do interesting things. You put the mic in the right place, you get interesting things with gating and compression and EQ, where you high pass it and you can get more attack on the kick or more bottom snare mic, and you get kind of a diffused bottom snare sound that's I prefer to actually just sticking a SM57 right on the bottom of a snare. I actually generally don't like that sound very much, but once you get it a little bit further away, you still get that kind of diffused splash of the snare, and it's a really, really nice effect. What I end up doing now is I end up putting an 87 in cardioid just sort of facing the batter, and you get a nice combination with that, because I don't have a weird old lavalier mic, unfortunately.
Moving on then, to the One Direction, go specifically onto that One Direction track that you worked on. What exactly was your involvement then, and what sort of condition was it in when you got it?
So I had done some work for the label Psycho in the U.S. here, and so I got a call out of the blue from Tyler, their A&R guy, and just said, we have this record, we're trying to get it finished up. Can I send it to you? Tell me what you think about it. Maybe do a spec production. And I said, sure, of course. And it was basically a finished record that I think they just wanted a little more kind of live band excitement out of it, and then kind of just some punchier sounds on it. And so they sent it to me, and it had all the vocals on it. It was a pretty complete production, and I just kind of did what I felt it needed, just to excite me, really. It was just, how can I make this sound more exciting to me? And so I just put, big rock guitar on it, played some live bass, just kind of performed it more like a rock band. Because it came to me very complete as a great song, very tight, but I just felt like livening it up a little bit. And so I actually had a friend of mine come in and play some drums, and I ended up replacing it in programming, but just kind of the way he leaned on some of the drum parts and things like that, just tried to make it sound a little bit more like a modern rock radio band, and they liked it. So, and then I kept working, did a couple more productions on that record, and then some on the new record as well.
Do you feel that pop is a good fit for you, or are there other genres which you would rather explore? Or
honestly, I think I just have this kind of schizophrenic desire to do lots of different things. If I do one thing for an extended period, then I immediately want to do something very different. And when working on some of the pop records, it's very exciting. It's an interesting challenge to say, here's a framework within a certain taste level that this is what you have to go for, and you have to make it the most exciting, and it can't be too long, and it can never get boring, and you're trying to just maximize excitement. And that's a really interesting challenge. And sometimes it's like, painting the most beautiful picture within a very confined space or a very confined framework. And then after doing that for a while, all I want to do is go make weird sounds and listen to, someone like Kanye West and see the young producers like Arca and guys like Hudson Mohawk and just make the craziest laptop destroyed future sounding stuff. Or you want to react the other way. I want to react the other way and go to make just very pure, very simple singer-songwriter acoustic stuff. I think anytime I'm working on one thing for an extended period, I just want to jump to something totally different after. And I think the different genres and the different ideas about how to make records really inform each other. So when you're working on a pop record, I like to take things from the very esoteric and very strange. And then when you're working on a very small indie weird record, you start picking out the elements of pop that sound very exciting and like, oh, that thing is really good. Maybe you should just do that twice instead of just once. Those sort of things end up informing each other when going back from genre to genre.
Just talking about roles quickly.
Yeah.
So you've got credits as an engineer, producer, mixer, songwriter. So is there one of those things that you sort of feel is your natural state, or is it? Do you prefer one of those sort of tasks, I guess, or is it just whatever, whenever?
It kind of is a whatever, whenever. For me, the fundamental of all of this music involvement is really just about trying to be around people that I really like, and if I like the music, I'll find a way to be involved. And sometimes that literally means sitting back and just putting up a microphone and letting people do their thing, and sometimes it means writing a song from scratch and producing it and playing everything and mixing and mastering and whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. But I really do enjoy getting together with other great producers or songwriters or musicians and sort of stepping back and letting them do their thing. Getting my favorite drummer. I'm close friends with some of my favorite musicians and producers, and getting in a room with them and letting them do their thing is almost more exciting than anything else to me, because one, I get to learn, and two, fundamentally, I'm just a fan of music. And so to get to be around someone where, cool, I can just go in and, put up a microphone and just watch the process is incredibly exciting to me. But of course, I also like to, if somebody comes in, like, I have this song and I can kind of sing and I can kind of play, I can go, cool, I can do everything else. I love that song. I like hanging out with you. Let's figure it out. So to me, it's just, they're all just part of the same process of being around music and trying to make things that are really great that make me happy. It's really a selfish endeavor more than anything else. It's really like, I just want to do things that make me really, really happy. And fortunately, I like weird music and I like pop music, and I've got enough of a skill set where I can kind of be involved with any of it, I think, at least some of it.
This is a bit of an odd segue, I'll admit, but this is a small studio, but if we look at those things, these ridiculous speakers here,
they're very absurd.
Are they primarily to impress A&R people, or are these actually in use on a regular basis?
Fortunately, they function well as both. They're these old Uri 813Cs, which actually Eric Valentine uses in his A room. When I was in the B room, we had the 811s, which I think are the same configuration, but just one woofer tweeter, but with these custom subs that Eric actually designed. And the low end on them, the combination is just spectacular. One of the things that, when going to different studios, that's always a problem for me, and it may just be me, or maybe it's just the nature of studios, is I never like the way mains sound. Low end's always very funny. The control rooms are always huge. And so to get mains that really, especially when you're doing a writing session and you have like a beat up and you have top liners, you want to get people very excited. I think in the same way that you want to get A&R people excited, or the way that I want to get excited just to feel like I'm 15 and listening to super loud hip hop at a house party or something. And the low end actually is really great and really flat on them. And so they serve as a great counterbalance to the Atoms, which I use as my near fields, because the Atoms are obviously very small and have a really great extended high end, very modern speaker. But to get those old school, the horns, they're almost like giant NS10s with huge extended low end. And so that's a really great contrast where the Atoms lack in low end, those make up for it, and where the Atoms have all kinds of extended high end, those don't have them. And so they're the perfect counterbalance to each other.
Cool. So do you want to just quickly talk us around the rest of your studio then?
Yeah, I mean, this room is basically set up to be a writing/production room. So I have an upright piano, and I have my keyboards, and I have a little vocal booth, but everything's kind of at my disposal. So if I want to walk in here and play guitar, things are ready, and everything's got a dedicated preamp. Things are mic'd up. I've got the machine if I want to do sort of hip hop MPC type stuff. It's basically set up to be a production environment. And so I just got that old Schumann piano, which is from I think 1902. Which is, like I was saying earlier, you need to have a piano that's at least 100 years old.
That's important.
It's very important creatively. But it's a great thing especially when you're doing pop writing sessions. There's so many of those sessions that I've been in where you get really talented guys who make amazing records on laptops, and you've got the track, and then you just write top line over it. And it's, I think, also a function of me playing in bands and playing piano growing up, but it's a nice thing to have pop writers come in and be like, oh my God, you have a beautiful old piano, this amazing old acoustic guitar. Let's just make sounds and let's write on it. Like, people don't get a chance to do that as much in the pop world. And so creating an environment where people just feel excited to do all kinds of different things, it's all kind of available, is the philosophy behind the room, at least.
And a nice vibe as well.
Nice vibe, yes. The vibe is everything. It really is. It's like getting people to the place where they're just comfortable and excited to make music. In the end, I think being a producer or being a writer, but really being a producer, is entirely about getting other people to be at their best. That's kind of it. And all the technical stuff, and there's great mixers, and there's people who write great melodies, and there's great performers. But the role of a producer is to just get all those people to do their best work. And if that means you get an old ass piano in the room, then that's great. Like whatever it takes to get people to feel really good.
So if you could give one piece of advice then to our viewers, one top tip, what would it be, do you think?
Man, you asked me for one tip. I think the thing that is going to help everybody going in to the future of record making, because things are changing and some things are becoming way more difficult, some things are becoming way easier, is really working on a lot of different types of things, or at least listening to a lot of different types of things. I think the best producers and writers and mixers and engineers that I know are guys that work on, you're sort of forced to, you work on a lot of different genres, but the more you can do that and the more you can find new things to like, the more genres you can find, be like, wow, I'm exclusively a rock country guy, but all of a sudden I found this hip hop record and man, it's incredible. You'll just learn so many new things. Once you find something to like, not just listen to, but like, I love this new thing, your perspective is just gonna broaden tremendously, and it will serve you well in an era where people don't buy albums, people don't buy physical things. So the kid who's 14 is listening to, Kelly Clarkson, and they're listening to Hozier, and they're listening to Kanye, and they're listening to, it's all out there. It's like, just pick a song. I'm going to listen to that genre. I'm going to listen to this thing. And if you want to keep making records and do it at a high level, I think you have to be informed, and you have to find a way to not just know what's going on, but actually like those things. It's also just gratifying to like new things. But I think that's the piece of advice is just be involved with all kinds of stuff. And even if you don't do it professionally, if you're a guy who, is a total acoustic engineer freak, go try and make a hip hop beat. Just see what it does to your brain, and see what it's like to take an 808 and distort it with a plugin if all you do is put 15 mics on a drum kit. Just see what that does, because it's going to inform, like, oh, that's why they did it that way. It'll just inform what you do.
What do you think is the most important thing then about a great production?
The most important thing in a production, it's really about, can you convey the emotion of the song? Can you get the artist to be at their best and be the most believable and really just excite people? I mean, I think it gets back to that notion of, at least for me, I have to be working on things that I really enjoy, because that's the only way I know if it's good or not. Because if I'm working on something that it doesn't move me on some level, then I have no idea if it's good. Because in the end, what you're just trying to do is you're trying to move people or excite people or make them dance or make them cry or whatever it is. You have to be able to get to the place where you are moved by it in some way, or it excites you. You get excited to work on it. I think the main thing to think about with the importance of production is just getting the artist to be great. And that's kind of it. I mean, everything else is secondary and everything else is incidental, I think.
We'd like to thank Matt Rad for having us to his studio, as well as Hannah Babbitt and Rebecca Sahim at Pulse Recording. If you like this video, why not subscribe to the Sound on Sound YouTube channel for all our latest video content. Also, if you want to read the magazine, you can pick up a copy in your local newsagent. Download the tablet edition or find us online at soundonsound.com. Thanks for watching.